Okay, well, we got to. Okay. So my questions aren't in this, you have to kind of reflect.
Sure.
So when you first saw the designs for whipped cream, what did you think?
How is this going? When I saw the designs of whipped cream, my first thought was, how is this going to be possible? Because they are quite extreme, surrealistic, and I was really, on the one side, excited, but on the other hand, also anxious of how that will turn out in practical ways. Because whenever there are big costumes or big sets or anything like that, that adds to our dancers' problems. Because, you know, the more you have to deal with, the difficult our job becomes, in a way.
So you play the boy.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about this character and what Alexei told you about this character and what you feel about this character.
Alexei explained to us that the whole story, that you know, the boy is actually you know, just any other boy who happens to love sweets and who eats too much of whipped cream and too much of sweets and has a sugar shock and falls into a sort of coma. And then in the hospital is being, you know, he falls into a fever dream. Now the question is, was the boy influenced by the meds which have been injected by the nurses, or is it just a sugar shock? But we basically are being transported to a dreamland where then we experience our own imagination, which is a nice thing, but on the other hand, it sometimes can also be scary.
Tell me about that, the scene when you are in bed and 12 nurses come in with these
huge syringes. When, as a boy, I'm in this scene where I wake up in the hospital and these 12 nurses show up with these huge syringes, it's even for me a little scary. I mean, I also found the audience to be interestingly ambivalent, because on the one side, when the curtain would come up for Act 2, they would be laughing as a first reaction, because in Act 2 you see like sort of a sterile hospital room with us being in a bed, but on the other hand, so on the one side it's sort of surrealistic and funny, but then when the doctor comes in with a huge hat and nurses with the 12 syringes, it becomes sort of gradually scarier, because there is sort of physical abuse happening to the boy by the doctor, because the boy is scared, you know, our character is scared in that moment because we're in an environment which we're not used to, and it's a big contrast to the environment we're in Act 1.
On the other side of the coin, the Mark Ryden's images
Mm-hmm.
are very fanciful and powerful, but Alexei's choreography is just so inspired in this show. Can you talk a little bit about that?
On the one side, Mark Ryden's costumes are so, like, in a way very inspiring and very powerful because just of its nature and the colors and the whole presentation. But Alexei's choreography is also very inspired, on the one side, by the costumes and the sets and the designs, but on the other hand, also by our company, I would say, because I think by now, and I think it has been around almost a decade, a bit less, but almost a decade that Alexei joined our company as a resident choreographer. By now, he knows us almost in and out because we worked with him on multiple ballets together, and he knows our strengths and he knows our fortes in that sense. And I think it really is coming very nicely together, because only now, I would say, not only now, but like he is still improving on getting to know us, and really is really in touch with us as dancers when he's creating. So that's pretty much it, I think.
How hard is it to dance in a Rachmaninoff ballet? Because other dancers have told me that it's very strenuous. And
It is extremely strenuous. I feel like sometimes Alexei he likes to challenge us and gives us something in the first rehearsal insurmountable. Basically a peak which you only see from afar, and you can't really reach it in the first rehearsals. Then you work yourself up, and it is extremely, extremely hard, to that degree that, and a lot of us have performed difficult ballets. For example, Theme and Variations, Romeo and Juliet. I'm talking about the male dancers. But this is another level, because you have to actually you can't really dance 100%. You have to see where you can rest. So it becomes a challenge to really get as close as possible to these 100%, to do everything full out. So it's almost impossible to really push through, for example, the variation in Act 2 without taking it easy in certain parts of the variation. Whereas in other ballets, especially in the canonical 19th century ballets, it is possible to do everything 100%. Here you have the bar is set so high physically that you need to be smart about how you perform it, which inevitably creates also a certain energy and a certain amplitude of the dancing as well, which is also in a way almost new, because before you could really bash everything out and you could really go for it. Here you have to be also smart about it, and it's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for us, which I think creates different and new sort of results than what has been seen before.
Well, other dancers have told me that when they're dancing for Alexei,
Mm-hmm.
They always want to give that extra percent,
Mm-hmm.
that 110%, just for him.
Yes. In rehearsal, yes. As a dancer, you always want to push yourself 110%. And then when you have Alexei sitting in front of the house or in front of the studio, you want to push 120%. So it becomes a cascading system. And it's funny because he basically never loses his calm, but the sort of Russian sort of steadiness actually increases the pressure you put on yourself. It's not him, it's basically you wanting to please Alexei, because you're inspired in the studio and you really want to go above and beyond to make it happen. Very often what he wants is impossible, but you want to get as close to impossible as possible.
I remember the very first interview that I did at ABT was with Julie Kent.
Mm-hmm.
And Julie said, I said, what's special about Alexei? One of the things is he speaks so nicely to the dancers and doesn't doesn't everybody speak nicely to the temple?
No.
Is he a nice guy as well?
Yes, I mean, we worked together for many years, and he's very nice, and he's very soft-spoken, but you can get your point sometimes better across when you speak softly and with great intent. If you say just do it, that might have a bigger effect than if you would say, do it this, do it that, and try to create pressure. So I think sometimes his power is in the simplicity of how he speaks.
We'll talk a little bit about Alexi's process of how he comes in and works with the dancers from the beginning.
He, of course, by now, as I have previously explained, that by now he knows us quite well, and he knows what we can do, but sometimes also knows that he doesn't know what we can do. So, for example, if he has a moment in the ballet where he just wants some fireworks, he's like, "What can you do for me here? What can you give me?" So we say, "Okay, we could do this." He said, "Okay, you do that and you do that, and we're good." So there is a certain flexibility in there. And he starts off, he's very meticulous about the steps and the music. He knows exactly how many counts he has for what. And so he has a certain idea, which he gives to us, dancers, and then we're trying to achieve it. Sometimes the idea morphs into something different. Sometimes it stays completely the way he wants to see it. He's very clear about his vision and very concise and precise about how it's being done. If there are better ways to create a similar, almost similar or same effect, then he accepts our changes, because he said, "Oh yeah, that makes more sense. So let's go this way or that way." And but in the big picture, in the very beginning, he has a very clear and understanding of what the big picture should look like of the choreography. So he knows the pattern, he knows how to go from where, and then the details or slight adjustments he's being open to for us. He's being open to our little suggestions or changes, and then sometimes he's like, "Okay, what can we do here? What can we do here?" And then there's different input from different dancers. Sometimes there are different versions, as the audience might realize that sometimes the variations look different on different dancers because they're doing different steps. Not every dancer is the same. For example, one person prefers to do stuff to the right, the other person prefers to do stuff to the left. We have different strengths, and so of course there's this flexibility. But in the beginning, he's very clear and very precise about what he wants.
He said just a little while ago that if you come to see this ballet on 4 different nights with 4 different casts, you'll see 4 different interpretations. Have you gotten a chance, being a principal, to see it from the audience perspective?
Of course.
And what did you think of when you saw it from the audience?
When I saw it from the audience, I thought it came together very, very nicely. There were a lot of challenges which we as dancers know because we are part of the process. And it's a little bit difficult to judge for if you are an element in the production of something that this big and this monumental, I would even say, then it's difficult to judge and step aside and really have an objective opinion about the piece of art which we are trying to create. But nevertheless, I thought that it came together very nicely. I thought that what we as a company, together with Alexei, set out to do got accomplished. And I'm very happy that, it's such a success and such a beautiful piece of art.
No, I know it's in Act Two, but there's this time where a group of dancers are throwing you up in the air, pretty high up in the air. Was that fun or was that scary?
In Act 2, when I'm being thrown up in the wonderland by the other characters, it is quite scary. Especially in the first rehearsals, I couldn't keep myself from screaming out, because Alexei would say like, higher, please, higher. So the dancers are like really cautious in the beginning, they're like, okay, let's play it safe. But then like I would basically in our studios touch the ceiling almost. And then at some point it becomes like a sport. They're like, okay, how far can we go? Especially the guys, because it's the guys who are doing the throwing. So they're like, okay, let's get higher, let's make it happen. So it got really scary, like at some points, but then it's fun because during the show there is no ceiling. So you really fly up there and you don't really realize how high you get. Because then after the show, I was like, so how were the throws? They're like, you got really high. And if the boys, the men who are throwing me up say that must have been then really high. Because I feel like they're trying to achieve like a record whenever they're trying to throw me. So it's something.
Well, there's got to be a lot of trust there on your part.
Of course, there's a lot of trust on my part. But in the end, it's also their fault if they drop me. So they know that they can only go as far as humanly possible. I'm not really afraid. It's just a matter of controlling your first reactions when being thrown in the beginning, because you don't know what to expect. But after a while, you just get used to it. You're fine.
Let's see what else I have here. So this ballet also represents the first time that David Hallberg will return after a very long absence, long enough that those who follow ballet were saying, will he ever come back? But he is back. What's it like to have him back again?
David Hallberg is a very dear friend of mine, and I was very happy and in a way very touched that the premiere of Whipped Cream also was a comeback for David Hallberg on the stage with American Ballet Theatre. And I was dancing at the same time. So it was a very touching moment because we all missed him. And not only him as a dancer, but also him as a person. And it was a celebration in many ways, not only as a premiere, but also as a comeback for David. So I was very lucky and I felt very privileged to be able to share the stage with his comeback.
Right. The last question is how do you think, and you've alluded to this before, but how do you think that Alexei has changed this company, or if he has changed it?
On the one side, I think Alexei has changed the company, but he himself is also evolving and changing. And I think for the better, because, when different elements come together, such an artist and choreographer as Alexei Ratmansky and a world-class company as ABT, inevitably it takes time to get rolling. And it takes time to get to know each other and to really play to each other's strengths. And he has done a great job by giving opportunities to young people, seeing potential in people who might have been less noticed before. And he has also, the way he rehearses us is also put us on the one side very calmly under pressure, which is good, because only under pressure can you cook something very nicely. And he has basically created a synergy together with our company and has pushed us to our limits and beyond. And I would say that there's more to come.
Yeah, thank you. That was very, very well said. You know, it's kind of like Alexei has been a great choreographer, like a great race car driver.
Yeah.
But then when you get a great car to drive,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, and elements can be good by themselves, but they're not necessarily good together. So it just takes time, blood, sweat, and tears to get better and better, and that's all of our mission, and to improve and to basically push and to continue pushing.
I don't know if you read Alistair Macaulay's
Mhm.
Review of Whipped Cream
Mhm.
when it premiered in California. I think he mentioned
Mhm.
you and Sarah in that cast. He said that this ballet that Alexei created within this ballet, what brilliance ABT
Mhm.
can
Yeah.
perform. And you know, that's, as you're saying, it's just this symbiotic relationship
Yeah.
between the two.
And it takes, as I said, it takes years to get to be as efficient as possible in this symbiotic relationship between a choreographer and a world-class company to create the best possible results.
So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Now we're going to follow the.
Do you want to do some?
Yeah, we'll do it.
Mhm.
All right.